Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So this video is going to have to be relatively quick because we need to get out the house, but I wanted to do this video. I had two in mind for today. So let me make sure I'm moving and shaking. I'm moving and shaking. Let's check the audio. I know I don't have necessarily a good attachment with time. But in this case, this one is going to be relatively fast. Recently, and I'll show the article. Let's see. This came out in. I pulled out everything except for this particular one. This is the one I actually wanted. Where is it? I'm sorry, guys. This was one specific article that I wanted, and here we are. This guy. Booker to stop accepting donations from corporate PACs. Now, this comes on the heels of Gillibrand doing the exact same thing. Gillibrand comes out and says, I'm no longer taking money from corporate PACs. Cory Booker comes out, does the same thing. Now, whether whether this is serious or not, I don't necessarily know. And I don't necessarily take it at their word or otherwise, that they are going to actually stand by that. For all I know, they could just want to do it just to get past the primaries. Now, two interesting points here that I want to point out. The first point, why they're doing it. These guys believe that they have fundamentally, they think it's fundamentally impossible for them to get through the primary without shedding away some of the things that they thought hampered Hillary Clinton's campaign. So in this case, they're talking about money in politics, meaning they're looking at a cynical left, and the cynical left is saying that money is a tether. The money that you take is open air bribery, and we look at that as bribery. This is the way we see this particular campaign, meaning the way that they were hitting Hillary Clinton in the campaign, they feel they don't want to be susceptible to those type of attacks. So they believe at the very least the optics of saying, oh, we're not going to take corporate PAC money. We're not going to take corporate PAC money. They believe that that's their way of trying to cover themselves and shield themselves from that particular attack. Now, there's something that's interesting here. They're not doing this because of the enablers. Like, they're not doing this for the people who, pledge their allegiance to the Democratic Party, regardless of what takes place, hell or high water. They're not doing this for them. Those people are already complicit. Those people are enablers. They're doing this for the people who are not complicit, for the people who left, for the people who said, fuck it, I'm done. The goal in this is to try to woo some of them back. If we can reform just a little bit, maybe we could pull those people back into the fold. This is because they understood that people left, that people got fed up, people got sick of it, and people left. This is their attempt. They're trying to get those people back into the fold. Now, I bring this article up because this brings up a larger point. Campaign finance. Now, we call it campaign finance, but ultimately what we're talking about is money out of politics. Now, if you're on the left, you have a dilemma. The people on the left have somewhat of a dilemma. Your campaign system, your capitalistic system, for whatever reason, and clearly there's a reason, it allows certain people with money and means to have access. But your system itself runs on cash. It's ensconced in cash. It's open bribery. I'm giving this guy a large amount of money. That guy is doing my bidding because I'm giving him a lot of money, and I'm using this money to get elected, meaning I require the money at the end of the day to get elected, meaning I require the guy who's giving it to me. I have to lean his way just by the basics of the system, the model itself, the incentive structure built into it. I need to lean in the way of the person who's giving me the cash. It's no different than you're at work and you're leaning a particular way based on what your boss is saying, or based on who's paying you. Boils down to who's paying you. I bring this up for this very particular reason. If you're on the left, no other position other than we want publicly funded elections makes sense. At the very least, money should have no influence in our politics. Period. And I say that if you're on the left, any other position is preposterous. How do you expect to get your candidates elected? Democrats aren't taking that money purely because that's their workable point of view. It is their point of view, meaning those are the people who they're in buddies with. But it's also this mechanics of the system, the way the system works as is. A president, what, needs at this point like $1 billion to get elected. They raise all of that cash. Now, when you raise all of that cash, what do you think you're going to do in order to get that cash? What do you think you're going to do? You think they're giving you that cash out of the kindness of their hearts? These things are investments. And as they're investments from the standpoint of when I call, that person's going to answer my phone call. When I poll, they're not going to necessarily go in ways that are against my interests. Otherwise, they're not going to get this cash again. And not just that, the cash is going to be used against you in the next election cycle. Now, before you say, well, wait a minute, Jamal. Yes, it looks like bribery. And yes, they're giving these guys large amounts of cash. And yes, over 90% of the races are determined by the sides with the most cash. But I trust these guys. I trust them. Fundamentally, I think they're good people. And they wouldn't necessarily do something that's so blatantly corrupt in the way that you're trying to explain the system to be to me. Okay. What about this? Don't take my word for it. Take theirs. Top GOP congressman. My donors told me to pass Republican tax bill or don't ever call me again. Certainly you don't believe this guy's an anomaly. Top GOP congressman. My donors told me to pass this Republican tax bill or don't ever call me again. Representative Chris Collins, a New York Republican, said donors have told him to pass the tax bill or don't ever call them again. This bill is being marked up in the White House Ways and Means Committee, and GOP leaders want it passed by Christmas. And they got it passed by Christmas. Representative Chris Collins, a New York Republican, on Tuesday cited pressure from donors as an imperative of the GOP to pass its tax bill. My donors are basically saying, get it done or don't ever call me again, Chris Collins told reporters. Representative leaders have portrayed the drive for tax reform as a benefit for the middle-class families, often at the expense of special interests. The donor pressures appears to be substantial, as the GOP has no major legislative victories to point to since the election of Donald Trump 1 year ago. Earlier this year, the party failed multiple times to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act, the health care law better known as Obamacare. And mind you, all of this boiled down to this thing of, how can we give plutocrats more money? How can we give plutocrats more money? How can we find ways to gut the American public, to bash the poor, to put them at the boot? Fucking poor. We need to get more money from this poor to give to the rich. How do we do this? So these schemes, gutting Obamacare and all, these were schemes in order to do that. In this particular case, the plutocrats got their tax bill. Congratulations. They put trillions of dollars on the backs of the American public in order to give people who didn't need it more. What about for Democrats? My argument is always, it's not one or the other, it's both. So if I'm right, there should be something similar to this on the Democratic side, because don't be so naive as to believe that Chris Collins is the only one in the situation. Let's take a look at this. Guy with no neck.
What Democrats are going with.
It's so effing wrong.
Whoa.
I've talked to Schumer. I've talked to Wyden. I've talked to Pelosi.
And said what?
And I said, if you use the term billion again, I'm done.
Why?
Because it's aspirational. I didn't start with anything.
Did you hear what he said? If you use the word billionaire again, I'm done. Let's let him finish. I want him to be explicit.
Just penalize everyone that's done well. We all want to do well. And we should be the party of doing well. We should be a party of business and leadership. And it is very, very disturbing when I hear the millionaire or billionaire word. And I've told them to stop it, knock it off. Because everyone wants to do really well. And this is the world of the aspirations.
Then are you worried that the Democratic Party is going too far to the left?
So much so, it drives me nuts. So much so, it would make me quit the party. And I've made it very clear, I'll cut your money off.
I will cut your money off. Let's get down to brass tacks. I will cut your money off. So on the Republican side, you have Republicans, you know, plutocrats telling Republicans, I've invested a lot of money in you. Now, God damn it, go in there, make sure my investment pays off. And Republican says, yes, sir. And they go in and they do what they're supposed to do because they're paid to do so. In this case, you have the Democratic Party with this plutocrat with no neck, this debilitatingly without a neck. It's talking about his anti-inspirational. Hey, buddy, you have a party. It's called the Republican Party. That's your party. The party of business, the party of fucking people over, the party of no empathy. That's the Republican Party. You're in the wrong party. You're in the wrong party. Or maybe you're not in the wrong party. My point here is he's being overtly explicit. I mean, this is ballsy. You have a plutocrat on national television telling the American public, I said I will not give them any more money if they bring up the term billionaire. If you bring up any issue of class at all, even if you use the word, I will shut your money off. I call Nancy Pelosi and I call Chuck Schumer. He had their numbers. He had their numbers. I assume he gave him a lot of money, so he got access for the money that he gave him. And in this case, he told him to shut the fuck up about class. I don't want the public looking at how I got my means and the fact that I have all this stuff and they have so little. Shut up. Shut up. You have plutocrats literally buying your politicians in the open outright. They're not even hiding it. They don't even care to hide it at this point. The public is so beaten down. We've already raped them to this degree, so fuck it. Let's just be honest. Let's just be honest. I ain't buying your politician on both sides. Ultimately, you believe that you're playing this game with one side or the other side. It's not. It's one side. You're being gamed. One side being batshit crazy, the other side being slightly less crazy, so you think that side is sane just by virtue of comparison. And you end up in this struggle that's not really a struggle at all between these two sides that ultimately are really the same side. Both are being paid off by the same people, have no doubt. Have no doubt. If you're on the left, and your position on this is plutocrats should have no influence in our elections. They should not have the capacity to buy politicians. Money does not equal speech. They should have no say-so in these elections at all. Elections are built for human beings, not for corporations, not for plutocrats, not for these businesses, none of that stuff. Human beings make the determination on who human beings want to put in those offices. Money is not speech. Because if that's not your position, then you need to explain to me something. How do you plan to compete in this situation where these guys are dropping billions of dollars into the electoral process? And you want your people to be paragons of virtue and say, I am not taking campaign donations. I'm not taking corporate PAC money. I'm not taking money from these guys. How do you plan to win? And how do you plan to run? And if you get in office, you need to kill that. You need to break that cycle. Meaning, if you get in office, then you need to run on your playing field. My playing field is, I don't want corporate donations. I don't want plutocrats having a say-so in who chooses or who runs in our elections, or for that matter, who wins the elections, purely because they have this bigger bullhorn of cash. You need to do something about that issue. That's a weakness on the left. Meaning these guys are going to have this money because these guys are always going to be assiduous to cash. The left itself is taking this more, if you're paying people money, you are bribing those people. And we do not like this idea of being bribed from a standpoint of politicians. Now, it's one thing if I, as an individual, am giving a candidate cash. A case can be made that that should be fair. But certainly not super PACs out here giving billions of dollars or millions and millions and millions of dollars, buying senators, buying congressmen. I mean, it's fucking insane. It's open bribery. The only position in this that the left can take that makes sense, meaning makes sense from the logical standpoint of, I don't want people bribing my politicians. How do I make sure that politicians are not bribed? I make sure politicians are not bribed by not having cash slushing through my system. As a lefty, that needs to be the position. Anything else allows for large amounts of cash to be put into a system in which you don't have large amounts of cash unless you can raise that cash from your audience or from your voter base. This is not a war you want to fight. Part of the reason the Democrats say the things that they say is, well, we're obsequious to this cash. We need this cash in order to fight Republicans. What if you just get rid of the cash in the first place? Just get rid of the cash in the first place. And by the way, talking about this last plutocrat, and I'm going to end it on this. This guy is saying, shut up about this class stuff. What if class is a conversation that needs to be had? What then? You have somebody who's bribing your politician to not have the conversation that needs to be had. Take a look at this. 95% of all new jobs during the Obama era were part-time or contract. Whoa, what do you mean? I thought the economy was booming. 95% of all new jobs during the Obama era were part-time or contract. Let's keep going. 95% of income gains since 2009 went to the top 1%. 95% of income gains went to the top 1%. The no-net guy is saying, shut up about class. What if class is the conversation that needs to be had? Let's keep going. The United States wealth inequality. The top 0.1% worth as much as the bottom 90%. Understand what's being said? Not 1%. Top 0.1% is worth as much as the bottom 90%. What if class is the conversation that needs to be had? This is incomeinequality.org. Top 1%, 80-90%, but bottom 20%. This scale is showing you average income of top 400 earners from 1992 to 2014. I'm trying to find a better chart that makes sense. Household income, bottom 90%, 34,000. It's average. Top 0.1%, 6,747,000. Look at, I mean, that's fucking insane. You're talking about the resources and the wealth of a nation going to top 0.1%, but massive amount of spoils going to such a tiny percent at the expense of everybody else in the country. What if wealth is indeed the conversation that needs to be had? And what you have in this situation is politicians on both sides, the Democrats and Republicans, bribing your political leaders to not have that conversations. For all intents and purposes, they're public relations spokespersons that comes out for the plutocrat that's just so happens to bind them. We should have a law where these guys need to wear stickers of whoever's paying them, just like NASCAR. That should be a law. That should be a law. They should have suits, special suits designed with these different numbers of the people that are on these things, just so we know who's paying who. I'm not going to keep this one long. I'm not going to drill this one until, I'm not going to beat a dead horse on this one. I'm just trying to make the point to you that campaign finance is magnificently necessary. You can't have this conversation about politics if money is sloshing through your politics. How can you say that you're voting for a particular leader and that you have fair and honest elections when ultimately candidates get swarmed with cash? You have an oligarchy. You have the rich bribing candidates, paying off candidates. And even when candidates think they're doing something in the best interest of the people in their district, what they're talking about is, yes, I need to take this money, and yes, I need to lean this way. But around the edges, I try to get these little minor things done. This is the best that we can do. This is the best that we can do. I guess the question I'm asking is this really the best that we can do? My answer to that is no. You can do more. You can do better. But that starts with recognizing that both of these parties are bought, that your electoral system is open air bribery, and that ultimately you're not going to get anything done doing the exact same thing that you've always done. No, it's not sexy, but it's a position. And at the very least, it starts at this point of standing. Okay, it's not one or the other, it's both. I need to pull myself out of this process, and I need to find something new because this is not serving my interests. So I will end it at that. Yeah, I ended at that. All right, guys. I wanted to have calls on this one. I'm not going to have time for calls. So on the next one, I will definitely have phone calls. But if you guys enjoy the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and of course, you can always support the Patreon. Thanks, guys.